Okay, folks, Bill Campbell back here again. We're going to do the next session on fixed income analysis and valuation. Introduction to the valuation of debt securities. I can tell you are excited about this, so let's get moving. There are 3 steps that go into the bond valuation process. As you all know, the value of a bond, frankly the value of any investment, is equal to the present value of all of the future cash flows discounted back to today at an appropriate interest rate. Now for a bond, the future cash flows are going to be the coupons and the principal repayment. So how do we calculate the present value, today's price, what this bond should be worth? We have to do 3 steps. The first, estimate what those cash flows are going to be. Sometimes that estimation is very easy. If we're talking about treasury bonds, for example, with a fixed coupon rate, we know exactly what the coupon is, we know exactly when they're going to be paid, we know exactly what the cash flows are. It's not like we have to worry about them defaulting on the cash flows or anything, so estimating those cash flows is very easy. It could be much more complicated if we have, for example, a mortgage-backed security where it has prepayment option embedded in it. So then it becomes much more difficult to estimate what the cash flows are going to be. When are they going to be prepaying this? When are people going to be selling their houses or refinancing their houses? How is that going to affect the cash flows? So sometimes estimating the cash flows can be very difficult. That's the first step. The second step, determine the appropriate discount rate. There are many ways that you can determine the appropriate discount rate. Back in study session 15, we talked about all the different kinds of risks you might want to consider when you are coming up with the appropriate discount rate. You might want to start with the risk-free rate and then add a premium for all the different kinds of risk that you have to bear when you purchase this security, buy this bond. These could be a premium for liquidity risk, a premium for default risk, a premium for interest rate risk, a premium for call risk or prepayment risk or credit risk, or if it's a foreign bond, for exchange rate risk or event risk. I mean, you can go through the list. Every possible risk that you take, you should add some sort of premium for your taking on that risk. Add those all up, that gets you an appropriate discount rate. Finally, take the cash flows, discount all of those back to today at the discount rate that you determined, add those all up, that's the value of the bond today. Straightforward idea, sometimes a little bit of work involved, but conceptually not too difficult. What are some of the difficulties in estimating cash flows? Well, you might be uncertain about the timing of the principal cash flows. For example, if you have a bond that's callable, so you don't know exactly when the principal is going to be paid, it could be called earlier. If you have a bond that's puttable, well, then you get to decide, but you may decide that you want to exercise the put option and have the bond issuer pay you back early. If you have prepayment options, like on mortgage-backed securities, then that could affect the timing on the cash flows. If you have a sinking fund provision, remember a sinking fund provision, that's where instead of waiting until maturity to pay off the entire bond issue, that the issuer has to pay off a certain percentage of the bonds each year. So maybe you have like a five-year bond issue, and the sinking fund provision is that 20% of the bonds have to be paid off every year. Well, those 20% of the bonds that are paid off are drawn by lottery, so you don't know if your bond is going to be paid off the first year or the fourth year or the fifth year or the second year. That could certainly lead to uncertainty about the timing. There might be uncertainty about coupon amounts. If you have a floating rate coupon, you don't know what's going to happen to future interest rates, so you don't know if the coupon is going to go up or coupon is going to go down. Similarly, if you had, let's say, an investment in a TIPS, Treasury Inflation Protected Security, where the face value of the security will increase as the consumer price index goes up. So it increases with inflation. That increase in the face value causes not only an increase in the amount that gets paid off at the end, but also an increase in the coupon payments, because the coupons are a fixed percentage of that changing par value. And finally, if there are other options like conversion options or exchange options, that may affect the timing and the amount of the cash flows as well. So that's some of the difficulties in estimating the cash flows that you're going to be discounting. Here's an example, valuing an annual pay bond using a single discount rate. Very easy problem. Term to maturity, 3 years. Annual pay, so we're going to get coupon, 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 and then with the last coupon we're also going to get the principal. Par value is $1,000, coupon is 8%, discount rate is 12%. Now before you do any calculations here, one of the things that I want you to do is get a feel for what is a reasonable answer here. That way when you do the calculation you can look at the answer and say, yes, this looks reasonable, it's probably right, or no, this answer is ridiculous, it's probably wrong. In particular, notice that the coupon rate is 8%, but we are requiring a return of 12%. Do me a favor. I want you to write down a little phrase. You're going to think that I'm crazy here, but I want you to write down a little phrase down here at the bottom. No, let's put it over here on the side. I want you to write down bonds. No, there's a D. Bonds equals, are you ready, hot dogs. Remember that. The price of a bond is like a price of a package of hot dogs. Suppose that you need, well, according to this, we have a discount rate of 12%. So you need 12 hot dogs. You have friends coming over, you're going to be watching the football game, you need 12 hot dogs. And you'd be willing to pay full price for a package of 12 hot dogs. You have a bond, it's not offering you 12 hot dogs, it's only offering you 8. You want 12%, it's offering 8%. You want 12 hot dogs, it's offering 8 hot dogs. Are you going to pay full price for that package of 8 hot dogs when you want 12? Of course not. You're going to pay less. So if the coupon rate is 8% and you require 12%, you're not going to pay full price. You're going to pay less. Full price would be $1,000 for this bond. You're going to pay less than $1,000. If you can remember bonds equals hot dogs, you'll get this every time. Now 12%, that's fairly high compared to 8%. So we would expect when we calculate the price, we're going to get a price less than $1,000, and it's going to be a substantial difference. It's not going to be $980. It's going to be substantially different. So now that we have a rough idea of what it is, let's do the calculation and see whether when we do the calculation, it comes up with our expectations. First thing I want you to do is draw out a timeline. I've mentioned this in other study sessions. This is a good time, and they have it drawn nicely, neatly here, which is much better than I can do. Draw yourself a timeline. Here's our timeline. Time 0, that's today. We're getting a coupon of $80 at time 1, 8% on a $1,000 par. At time 2, we're getting a coupon of $80. At time 3, we're getting a coupon of $80, and we're getting the $1,000 par back at time T. Once you get this, then you know when you start putting the numbers in your calculator, you're not going to miss anything, you're not going to mess it up. So one way you could do this is simply put in all the cash flows and discount them back to today. Take $80 a year from now, discount it back to today at 12%, divided by 1.12 to the first. Take $80, discount it back to today at 12% for 2 years, 80 divided by 1.12 to the second. Finally, your cash flow in year 3 is $1,000 plus $80. Discount it back to today at 12% for 3 years, 1.12 raised to the third power. Add those all up, you get $903.93. That's a reasonable answer. We decided it should be less than $1,000. We decided it should be a substantial amount less than $1,000 because 12% is a lot bigger than 8. And sure enough, we have a discount of almost 10%, almost $100 on that $1,000 bond. That looks reasonable. I like that answer. I'd be happy after doing this calculation if I saw, answer C on this question on the CFA exam is $903.93. I'd be happy with that. instead of doing all that calculation by hand, you can do this calculation using the time value of money, using the cash flow numbers on your calculator. 3 periods, so put in n equals 3. Interest per period. Periods are annual, so interest is annual interest, 12%. The payment is $80. That's our coupon payment, and the future value is $1,000, and tell it to compute the present value. Now notice that on the cash flow buttons on your calculator, remember, you always think about this as cash flow. I've mentioned this in other study sessions. I want you to get this clear. Always, do me a favor, always, always, always think of these problems from one standpoint. Either always think of it from the standpoint of the investor, the person who purchases the bond, or always think of it from the standpoint of the issuer, the company or government that issues the bond. And you have to think of these as cash flows. So this one is done from the viewpoint of the investor. So the investor is going to pay for the bond today. That's a negative cash flow today. He's going to receive the coupon payments a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. That would be a positive cash flow. And he's going to receive the principal payment 3 years from now, a positive cash flow. So when you're putting the numbers into your calculator, you put in a positive $80 for the payment. You put in a positive $1,000 for the future value. And when you compute the present value, you will notice that it comes out as a negative number, negative 903.93. And that's reasonable because you're the investor. That says that today you have to pay $903. You have a negative cash flow. So remember, it doesn't matter to me whether you do it always from the viewpoint of the investor, the lender, the bondholder, or if you do it from the viewpoint of the borrower, the issuer, the government or the corporation that's selling the bonds. Pick one, whichever one you prefer. Doesn't matter to me. Both work equally well. Pick one you like and stick with it, and you will never mess up these numbers. All right, we have the same bond, 8% annual coupon. It's a 3-year bond, but now it's paying semi-annually. So instead of paying you $80 at the end of 1 year, it's going to pay you $40 in 6 months and $40 in another 6 months. Now our time is measured in 6-month periods. So our payment is going to be $80 over 2 every 6 months, or $40. Our number of periods is going to be 2 times 3 years, or 6 6-month periods. And our discount rate, our required rate of return, is going to be our semi-annual required rate of return, 12% divided by 2, or 6%. So you have to make all of those adjustments so that all of your measurements are done for a half year. Your coupon payment is a half year, your time is measured in half years, your discount rate is appropriate for a half a year. Future value doesn't change, it's still par, it's still $1,000. And when we do the calculation, notice that, once again, we're doing this from the viewpoint of the investor. He's going to receive $40 6 times, once in 6 months, once in a year, once in 18 months, once in 2 years, once in 30 months, once in 3 years. He's going to receive the future value of $1,000 in 3 years. Today he's going to pay $901.65. Slightly different price from the annual pay. If we did the calculation longhand, we would take each one of those $40 semi-annual coupon payments, discount it back to today using semi-annual time periods and semi-annual discount rates. So it would be 40 discounted for 1 period at 6%, 40 discounted for 2 periods at 6%, 3, 4, 5 periods at 6%, and finally 1,040 discounted for 6 periods at 6%. Here's another one, calculating a zero coupon bond price. Well, this one's easy. We're only going to get one cash flow. Somebody once asked me, does a zero coupon bond pay any interest? And if I ask my students this, they usually say no, a zero coupon bond doesn't pay any interest. Absolutely wrong. Zero coupon bonds do pay interest. They pay 0% interest. And how often do they pay 0% interest? Every 6 months. So every 6 months you get $0 from this. Why am I making such a big deal about this? Why am I acting so silly about it? Because you have to realize that you are discounting these based on semi-annual periods. Remember, bond people always measure time in semi-annuals. How many 6-month periods until this gets paid off? We do our discounts on 6-month periods. Everything we talk about is bond equivalent yield. Take the 6-month discount rate, double it to get the year rate. So it's not being silly. Think about a zero coupon bond as paying a coupon, 0%, every 6 months. Let's do some calculations here. If we're using the time value of money, we have, for a 3-year bond, we have 6-month periods. Our payment is 0. Do me a favor. Remember to put in that payment equals 0. Don't rely on your calculator being cleared. If there were some number left over in the payment, you'll get a wonky answer. You'll be very confused. You won't know what to do. Take the extra half a second and put in 0 for the payment. Make sure you get it right. Future value is $1,000. Notice, once again, we're doing this from the viewpoint of the investor, the bondholder. He's going to receive $1,000 in 3 years. What does he pay today? The interest per year, interest per period is 8% a year divided by 2, or 4% every 6 months. Tell it to compute present value. It comes out to negative $790.31. It's a cash flow problem. He pays out $790.31. If we didn't want to use those, if we simply wanted to do the discounting ourselves, we take $1,000, discount it for 6 periods at 4% each period, still better come up with $790.31. Now, as the bond approaches maturity, if the bond sells at a premium today, its price is going to go down. Even if nothing changes, if the yield to maturity on this bond stays the same, still, as we approach maturity, that premium is going to decrease and decrease and decrease until the day we reach maturity, the value of the bond is going to be $1,000. The day before it matures, you are not going to pay a premium for that bond when the next day all they're going to pay you back is $1,000. Similarly, if a bond starts at a discount, as we approach maturity, the discount on that bond gets smaller so that the price gets larger. It goes up and up and up to $1,000. This effect is what we refer to as the pull toward par. As time goes on, even if nothing else changes, the value of the bond gets pulled to the par value, so that on the day that the bond matures, the value is par, $1,000. Let's take a look at a problem. What is the value change as time passes? Nothing else is happening. The only thing that's happening is that time is passing. A 6% 10-year semi-annual coupon bond has a yield to maturity of 8%. Okay, what do we know? It's paying us 6 hot dogs. We want 8 hot dogs. This is going to be a discount bond. We're not going to pay full price for 6 hot dogs when we need 8 of them. So we know immediately that when we calculate the price of this bond, it had better be less than $1,000. We get something more than $1,000, we know that we made a mistake somewhere. But 8% isn't a whole lot higher than 6, especially on a 10-year bond. So although it's going to be a price less than $1,000, it's not going to be substantially less. It's not going to be $700. It's going to be somewhere in the $900 range, probably $900, $950, something like that. If we get a number that's too small, again, we know we messed something up. What's the value after 1 year if the yield doesn't change? What's the value after 2 years? So Here we go. What's the price of the bond? N is 20. 20 periods. Payment, $30. Future value, $1,000. Notice the payment is negative and the future value is negative. Now we are looking at this from the viewpoint of the issuer, the viewpoint of the company or government that issued this bond. They are having to pay out coupons of $30 every 6 months and a future value of $1,000. The interest per period is 4%. Yield to maturity is 8 for a year, 4% every 6 months. Present value, okay, I was off a little bit. I overestimated. I thought it would be about $900. It's $864. Okay, still a reasonable number. It's less than $1,000, but it's not $600 or $700. Notice the present value is positive. Why? We're doing this from the viewpoint of the issuer. Today, they will receive $864.10 because they're selling the bond. What change are we going to make on those inputs when we calculate the value of the bond 1 year from now? We're simply going to make N shorter. 1 year is 2 6-month periods. So we simply change N to 18. Notice the difference that we have here. N is now 18 instead of 20. Everything else is the same. Still a payment of 30, still a future value of 1,000, still interest per period of 4%. The price of the bond has gone up from $864.10 to $873.41. The only difference, a year has passed. What's the value after 2 years? Now N gets changed, notice, to 16. Everything else stays the same. The value of the bond, $883.48. The price of the bond is getting pulled toward par. It's getting pulled to $1,000 simply because time is passing. Nothing else is happening. All right, the price-yield relationship. We have a semi-annual bond, 8%, 3-year. If we have a discount at 4%, a discount at 8%, and a discount at 12%. Once again, look at this and come up with a reasonable answer. We want 4 hot dogs. This bond's paying us 8. We're going to pay more than par. We should get a price above $1,000. We want 8. It's paying us 8. This darn well better come out to exactly $1,000. We want 12. It's paying us 8. This last one ought to come out to less than $1,000. Let's take a look. $1,112.03. Good, makes sense. We're looking for 4% and it's offering 8. We should pay a premium. If we're looking for 8 and it's offering 8, we better pay exactly par. That's a good number. We like that. And finally, if we want 12 and it's only paying 8, $901.65, less than $1,000, that number looks good. We're happy with that number. Arbitrage-free bond prices. You guys all know what arbitrage is. Arbitrage is where you can buy the same asset in 2 different markets at 2 different prices. If you can buy or sell the same asset in 2 different markets at 2 different prices, you can make a risk-free return. You simply buy for the lower price and sell for the higher price. The way I like to say it is you buy cheap and you sell dear. Buy the cheap one, sell the expensive one, make a bunch of money. Dealers can take a treasury security and strip it into its individual cash flows. In fact, the Treasury has actually taken that verb, strip, and created an acronym, STRIPS, to abbreviate, I don't remember what it stands for, but it's the individual cash flows from all of these bonds. So, if the price of the whole bond, when it's put together as a whole bond, is different from the price of all of the individual pieces added together, well, that's the same asset. It's either the cash flows all put together or the cash flows all separately, if those two prices are different, there's an opportunity for arbitrage. You buy the cheap one, you sell the dear one. The way that we calculate the price on all the pieces is that each one of the cash flows has to get discounted at the spot rate that is appropriate for that cash flow. So let's say we have a 3-year Treasury bond. So a 3-year Treasury bond, well, it's now a bond. I mean, yeah, it's now 3 years. Started out life as a 10-year bond. Okay. We have a coupon 6 months from now, a coupon a year from now, coupon 18 months from now, coupon 2 years from now, coupon 30 months from now, coupon 3 years from now, and par 3 years from now. 7 cash flows. The cash flow 6 months from now should be discounted back to today at the 6-month spot rate. The cash flow a year from now should be discounted back to today at the 1-year spot rate, and so on. So we are going to discount each of those cash flows at potentially a different discount rate based on the different maturities. So we discount all of those cash flows. We add up those to get the price on all the pieces and compare that to the price of the bond. If the pieces cost less than the bond, then we buy the pieces. We have to buy one other thing if we buy the pieces. We have to buy the pieces and we have to buy some Scotch tape. So we can tape the pieces all together and make a bond, and then we sell the bond. If it turns out that the pieces, when we add up the prices, are more expensive than the bond, then we buy the bond. We have to buy one other thing. We have to buy a pair of scissors. We buy the bond, we buy a pair of scissors, we cut the bond up into all its different cash flows, sell the pieces, make a bunch of money. That's arbitrage. Now, of course, what's going to happen when we start doing this? Well, everybody else is going to start doing this. Let's say that the whole bond is cheap and the pieces are dear. As everybody starts buying up the cheap bonds, what's going to happen when they buy it up? The price is going to go up. What's going to happen when they start cutting it up into pieces and selling all the pieces? The price of the pieces are going to go down until the two prices come into equilibrium. So this arbitrage opportunity is not going to last very long. Here's an example. The market price for a 1.5-year 6% Treasury note is $984. We have the cash flows. We have the spot rates that we're going to use for the cash flows. The spot rate for a year and a half, or for a half-year cash flow is 5%. The spot rate for the 1-year cash flow is 6%, and the spot rate for the 1.5-year cash flow is 7%. Now these are annual rates. Remember, bond equivalent annual rates. So because we're discounting for 6-month, 1-year, and 1.5-year periods, we're discounting. We're measuring time in 6 months, we have to use semi-annual discount rates. It's a 6% Treasury note, pays 6% per year, pays $30 every 6 months. So we have a $30 cash flow 6 months from now, a $30 cash flow a year from now, a $30 cash flow a year and a half from now. We have to discount each of those at its appropriate spot rate, add them all up, see how that total compares to $984. So here we go. $30 6 months from now, discounted at a 2.5% semi-annual rate. $30 a year from now, discounted at a 3% semi-annual rate for 2 semi-annual periods. $1,030, discounted 3 periods at a 3.5% semi-annual rate. Add those all up, you get $986.55. The bond is selling for $984. Remember how you make money? You buy the cheap one, buy the bond at $984, you sell the dear one, you sell the expensive one, sell the pieces at $986.55. You get to keep a whopping $2.55. I had a student recently who asked me why you would go to all this work to get a profit of $2.55. I explained to this student that you wouldn't do it for $2.55 because you're not going to do this with one bond. You're going to do this with 1,000 bonds or 10,000 bonds or 100,000 bonds, and you would get $25,000 or $250,000 or $2.5 million for doing it. You don't do this just with one bond. So the arbitrage process, dealers can take a treasury bond, strip it into its individual cash flows, and sell the pieces, or they can take the pieces, put them back together, and sell the whole bond. If the bond is priced less than the pieces, buy the bond, sell the pieces. If the bond is priced higher than the pieces, buy the pieces, sell the bond. Either way, you don't have to remember all of this. Just take a look at the price of the bond, take a look at the price of the pieces, buy the cheap one, sell the dear one. That's how you make money. Okay, guys, that's the end of this reading. I will see you in a little while on the next one. Take care, study hard. We'll talk to you later.